Bonds, thanks for taking the time. This is the first time we spoke since you came back to the club. How have you found the first couple of months, and what have you been up to?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been very different for me personally, but also nice to see the place fully operational, and really tasked by the board and the owners early on to carry out a bit of a review of how I see things and where I feel our strengths are and where we need to improve. It's been much more inside than outside. It's been much more business than football in lots of ways, but at the same time, it's been good to get eyes on everything. Spent a lot of time in meetings and discussions with people, and writing reports and analysing things to try and give ourselves the clearest picture of where we are and where I think we need to go. So it's been intense. It's been full on, and certainly enjoyable in many ways as well. So good to be back and good to have got my teeth into something again.
Have you found it productive?
Really productive, yeah, and I think partly because of the number of good staff that there are, and certainly the senior execs at the club, the support of people like Alex, the football board, the owners has been really, really useful for me. Real open communication and sharing of ideas, and also nothing's off the table when we feed back to each other, which is really important. Having that real open dialogue and straight line to the ownership is so key for a club, that you don't get too many layers and you don't get too many barriers in the way. And that's included lots of feedback, good and bad, in so many areas. I think when you're in the situation we are or have been, it's very easy to tar everyone with the same brush and assume that nothing's good about the operation or about the people, and that's not true. So it's trying to work out where can we be better, what hasn't worked, and why are we where we are, and try to be as positive, honest, and forward-thinking as possible. Because whilst you've got to review what has happened, we've got to make sure that our effort and energy is into how we're going to influence what happens next, and that's where most of my time's been spent.
You would have known that relegation was a possibility when you came back to the club, but it must have hurt all the same, especially with the role that you played in getting us into League One.
Yeah, look, I think the day that myself and Neil spoke, every statistical model would have suggested the outcome that was. In the end, the points difference is what it is. There was a period over that 15 games where there's been so many moments where we were nearly moments to get ourselves right in the race, and you can point to some specific periods or goals in games or specific games that, had they gone the other way, the if-only bits. There's no point spending too much time there. I think over the course of a season, when things turn out as they do as often as they did, it probably just means we haven't quite been good enough over the course, and we have to just accept that. So there's loads of reasons for that. It's been a tough couple of years trying to compete. We haven't been able to do it in the end for a number of reasons. And it is disappointing and it is frustrating for everybody. Certainly the ones that have been involved all the way through, or certainly the whole season, that can weigh you down. Like, whether that's players, staff, supporters, everybody carries the weight of that. And yeah, it's hard to have that energy to see what good looks like and see a brighter future, but it is there, and that's our job to try and put it there. But it doesn't go unnoticed, the commitment and the energy and the effort of so many people to get us to this point, to be as strong as we have been, to grow and develop the club in the way that we have. A disappointing season where everyone holds their hands up and knows that's the situation. All we can do now is put all our energy into what happens next, and that's where myself and Neil will be spending the summer doing.
The retain list has just recently been published. We knew that there was going to be a lot of change, and so it's proved with that list. Yeah,
I think Neil's probably made reference to that a few times, and he can speak around lots of the individuals over time. But at the same time, he's been fairly open that this summer will be a rebuild. It's an opportunity with the number out of contract to make those changes. And after the season we've had, number one, I think it's understandable that there's change. Number two, it creates an opportunity to change. And so you have to take those opportunities when they're there. And number three, sometimes you just feel like something needs to change as well anyway. You need a freshness, you need a new energy, you need some new faces and personalities around the place that maybe don't carry the burden of a disappointing season or two. And we hope that we can do that with the retain list that we've put out there. There's always tough decisions to be made at the end of a season. There's always an argument for and against every player on a list. But in the end, we make the decisions that we think are right for now. Off the back of what's happened and off of what we want to do. You have to think about that as well. No one knows that plan yet, but that's what we have to think about as well. And we're grateful to those that are departing for all of their efforts over various lengths of times, whether they're boys that have come through the academy and worked all the way through the system or been here a short period of time on loan. Whoever they are, everybody's done their best and tried their best, given their most to try and help us succeed. And ultimately this season we haven't, but that's not on just those people, it's on everybody. It's just an opportunity for us now to create the change that we think we need.
Two players that deserve a particular mention and ones that you know well, Paul Digby and Jabril Okadina, who are leaving the club. Both really good servants, and unless I'm mistaken, I think the last two remaining members of that promotion-winning team. Yeah,
interesting in the fact that they are that, and we have to celebrate that and thank them for their efforts over a longer period of time. Both played a part in that, and therefore are etched in the history, really. Promotions don't happen too readily in many clubs, so to have succeeded in that way, they're in the history books for that, and we thank them for that and for the service over the time. You know, you look at someone like Paul, who's led the team on occasions, who's a top character. 5 years at a club is difficult or unheard of. We've actually built teams over stability over time, and 5 years is a good chunk of time. You know, you only have to think that 3 players in recent times have had testimonials here. That's really unheard of, but it is one of the blocks, I think, towards being sustainable and being consistent and building a real strong culture. So we're grateful to those, and yeah, things move on and it becomes the next generation that we have to try and find and build.
We also announced a little earlier that Gary Gardner has left the club. Probably in the end best for all parties that happened. Yeah,
look, really disappointing. I think everybody was excited in the summer when Gary joined the club for obvious reasons, with his record and his history and his career that he's had and the calibre that he is. I think it's fair to say that the year certainly hasn't played out how anyone thought, hoped or expected at the time. And then sometimes you have to have those really thoughtful and meaningful conversations, which we've had, and Gary's been good as gold with that, and we probably all agree that it seems like a right time to almost draw a line after a disappointing year. One, to give us a little bit of a clear deck so we can move forwards and know where we are, and two, for him to do the same. So it's been frustrating for everybody. We appreciate all his efforts to try and get himself fit and available, but we do feel on everyone's side we've come to an agreement and an outcome that suits all parties and allows us to move forward now. So we wish him every success, as we do with everybody else that's leaving the club, and now our attention moves to, right, what's the next squad and who are the next players that can help us rebuild.
Looking ahead, what will pre-season look like this year?
Yeah, so players return last week of June. It gets earlier, it seems, every year. It seems like a really early start this year, 2nd of August. So you go back almost 6 weeks from that. We're around the week of the 23rd of June that players return. Be the usual deal. Neil will work them and have that prepared. My role in that really is to try and organise the games programme to make sure that we're well prepared. So we've got a start date. Players right now have got off-season programmes to be working on to be as best prepared when they come back for the pre-season that will be there. It'll be tough. It'll be hard. We've got to lay the foundations for a good season with a really strong pre-season, and that will be the work that we do now and the work that happens during that period. But we've got really experienced people guiding that process. So we're convinced that will work. And then in terms of the games programme, we've got a bit of a varied one, probably in keeping with recent years or the trends of pre-seasons. There's a mixture of games from different levels, all of which will be announced within the next few weeks once it's all tied up. There's a few moving parts with the playoffs going on at the moment as well, as to confirming a couple of fixtures. We think there'll be 7 games in the schedule for us, 3 of which will be open to supporters, the rest of which will be behind closed doors at training grounds. That allows us to manipulate the format of the games and the timings and how often we play and how many games we have, and to be able to work without the scrutiny of the public on that. And I think every coach wants that as well. So that's the first side of the games programme, and we'll confirm that as soon as we can. But we're 5 out of 7 games confirmed. One of those involves going away for a few days. We're not going abroad this year, but we are going away for a couple of days and tying a game into that as well, which will be behind closed doors, which will be a good opportunity for new players and staff to spend a bit of time together. So we're really as organised as we can be at this stage for that, and hopefully within probably the next 2-3 weeks we'll be able to confirm everything and let people know what games they can come to.
Something that's gathered momentum in terms of discourse with supporters in recent weeks is the training ground pitches. I know that it's been an area of frustration over the past year, so What can you tell us about what the problem was and what is being done to address that?
Yeah, so like Project Training Ground's probably been going on for a decade, and we're in an unbelievable position, really. But as you'd expect, when you move into something new, there's some teething problems, and last year's problems pre-season. If you spoke to the ground staff, they'll tell you about the conditions that just made the pitch renovations on 2 of the 4 pitches almost impossible. The weather just killed it. The timing of external contractors just couldn't tie in. The weather never played ball. And actually, we had half of the training ground operational in terms of field space. So that impacts the first team a little bit, just because the quality of those 2 available pitches drops, but massively impacts the under-18s and the academy as well, who ended up training off-site. So you don't really get that cohesion between the 2. So next year will give us an opportunity to have that. And really, we can go pre-COVID, since the youth team have really been integrated with the first team at the training ground, because since COVID we were split sites, then we had building renovations, which meant they were off-site, then we've had pitch issues. So really 5 years since we've had regular interaction between the youth team and the first team, and that's beneficial for so many reasons. So that will be a big game changer for us. We're only a few days after the end of the season. All the pitch renovation work is done behind me. Everything is now set. We're relying on good weather, which the forecast is good for that to be operational. The investment from the owners, again this summer, to fix those issues and improve, means that next year we've got 4 pitches that are drained and irrigated, and some training areas on top of that. So yeah, we're in a good place by the time we come back. As long as the grass grows, we'll be in a really good situation with the training ground pitches. And in terms of the building, I was in here about a week before I left, so I never really got to see how the building worked and how it flowed. But for me, there's some obvious flaws in it straight away when I return, in terms of the number of people or how we use it, or the rooms, how we can integrate staff a little better, create a little bit of a better flow to the building, create a bit more atmosphere, have a few breakout spaces. So we've got a couple of additional rooms being built into the building, no extension to the building, just a little bit of a change around in a couple of areas to make us a little bit more cohesive, and to make it a little bit more departmental in certain areas as well. So that's more for the backroom staff and the backroom team than it is the players. Player facilities are what they are, pitches will be improved, but the office space for a little bit better communication and internal work between everyone is underway at the end of this month as well. So time we come back, we think the training ground will be in really good condition, and I know going to the level that we are, it will be right up there with the best, if not the best in the league.
And on staffing, people will be aware that a number of key footballing roles have been out for adverts over the past few weeks. How far down the line are we with that recruitment? Yeah,
so that's a big part of the job really for me over the past few months, has been assessing where we are and where the gaps are and what we need and how we need to strengthen. So we have advertised a number of positions. A head of recruitment position is pretty much a done deal, which is great timing considering the season that we're now in the off season, and we expect that to be appointed and started early next week. So as long as everything goes well in the next couple of days, that should all be signed and sealed, and hopefully next week we have a start date and an announcement to make. The other probably open positions that we're interviewing and working towards, and all of these are at different stages. One is head physio, the second one is exec performance lead, to sort of manage and oversee that performance, sports science, management, medical department, and the other is assistant head coach. So lots of conversations going on around those. They're all at different stages, but what we do expect is no announcements imminent, because those start dates will be nearer towards pre-season. What we expect and hope is that all of those are tied up in advance of pre-season, and we've got a pretty formidable backroom team in my mind that will take us into next season.
Finally, what does the next month or two look like for you, and how are you feeling about the future of the club?
Yeah, I think the next few months is going to be busy. For me, my job, I broke into sort of 3 phases in the initial 6 months. One was to get a grip of what was and what is. And I'd say that the first 3 months has been getting a grip of everything. Stage 2, get a group together. And that group involves the backroom team and the playing squad. And the backroom team's coming together nicely and should be set for pre-season. So fundamentally, live and die by your recruitment. Now we've got to get really busy on building a squad and rebuilding a squad to be ready for next season. So fundamentally, amongst all the other bits and pieces that will be announced and that have been happening to improve and make sure we've got the right people and the right processes in place as a club and as a football department, we've now got to build the squad, and that's the biggest part of what I think the next 3 months will be. We know we've got, obviously, following the retain list, a lot to do. we'll be looking for players in pretty much every position. We know what we're after in terms of positions and profile of player. We know how we want to play, so we're starting with the end in mind. We know what the budget is. We know where we are in terms of finance and what we can do. So we're in a really healthy position, being able to plan what we've done over the last few months. And we feel we've got a really solid, well thought out plan built by myself and Neil, fundamentally on the football side, along with everybody else's involvement. And now it's about executing the plan to the best that we can. And everyone's got a really good plan in June and in May, but actually executing it is the hardest thing. So we've got a lot to do. We don't expect all of that to be in place by the time we come back pre-season. We'd love to be halfway there if we could be. That would be a good strike rate for us. So it's not going to be a trigger fire of signings over the next 2 or 3 weeks, but we hope to drip them in over the next month and try to make sure we get the one good value, but also the right players to help us be the team we want to be next season. So that's number one aim, really. And then beyond that, it's getting ready for the new season and helping where I can in pre-season, because we've got an exciting season ahead of us. And in many ways, some people can't quite move on from the last one yet, but I have, and I'm ready to, and we're ready to. And what I think I'm really certain of is we're going to have really good people driving what we want to do. We're going to have a really good vision and idea, real clarity over that, and real joined up thinking. And that is fundamentally the starting point to anything that's successful. So that's part one. And part two is, all right, I've had a gap in the middle where I've missed a bit, but my backstory or vision or understanding of where the club is now from where it was or where it's been is really clear. And we have to move on from that sometimes. We can't be a handbrake. Our history can't be a handbrake for us, and it can't be, oh yeah, but it used to be like this. Like, we've got to think forwards and get better and improve. But what I do know is we go to League Two next season. Disappointedly, yes, but optimistic, because I know that the football club in every single area, including the football operation, is so far in advance of where it was the last time we were in this league. It is frightening and so hard to measure, and really hard to explain to people how far this club is from what it was then. So that gives us no guarantee for what happens next, but it gives us incredible stability, incredible strength, and incredible optimism that the future can be really exciting, and that while we might have taken a little step back on where we were trying to get to on the pitch, everything else carries on at the pace and the momentum that it has, and we just have to rediscover that. Part of being in a club like this is football means 1 year you might go up, you might go down, but don't let it rock you. The owners are incredibly committed, incredible vision to what they want to do that hasn't changed. And in the end, the people that we're recruiting on the backroom team and those of us that have returned wouldn't be coming to something that lacks ambition, because we all want to win and we all want to be a part of a successful team. So we can't guarantee anything other than the fact that we know what we're doing, we know where we want to go, and we'll work incredibly hard to try and get us there. And I hope that gives everybody some peace of mind and some certainty that it's worth getting on board again and jumping in, because I actually don't think there's a better time to be involved in the football club than it is right now.